Did you guys know that one of India's oldest, most traditional forms of business, an entire industry, is going through a major disruption right now? Some people are even questioning the terminal value of these businesses. Good evening, everyone. I'm Karnik Shah, and welcome to Inflection Point Research. In this week's video, we're going to talk about a sector that is going through major changes, and we'll discuss what's going to come out of these changes, and also some businesses in a related domain that are not only surviving right now, but are thriving. If you guessed IT services industry, you guessed correctly. So the IT services industry is traditionally a headcount oriented industry where their clients are basically renting IQ from the IT services companies to build out their own products. But how I look at it now for India, it's the end of renting IQ and the rise of building our own IP to sell to the world. This is the new India in the 21st century, where companies and businesses have realized the importance of building and selling your own IP. This leads to more adaptability to external disruptions. This leads to higher valuations, and this leads to a very important concept in business known as operating leverage, where your revenue is not tied to your headcount and incremental revenue flows directly to your bottom line. For the past 30 years or more, the Indian dream was very simple: complete college, learn coding, join a IT services giant, and ride the linear growth wave. For companies also, it was a similar model. To increase their revenue, they had to just increase their headcount, as in hire more people. This followed a pyramid structure where most of the people were in the bottom 70% of the pyramid, and this comprised of freshers, junior coders, coders. Then you had the middle tier, which was managers, and then you had the senior tier, which was company leadership and client facing like people. This basically functioned on a labor arbitrage model where companies were paying the employee X, charging their clients 20 a markup of 20 or 30% on X, and everyone was happy because for the clients to hire in their own local respective countries, they'd end up paying a lot more. For the companies, they were just hiring people and marking up whatever they were paying them, and it was a pretty symbiotic relationship. What's changed today? The IT services industry is fighting a war on multiple fronts, which we will discuss. The first and most obvious front is the AI front. The second is the rise of GCCs or global capability centers. And the last front is Donald Trump and his restrictions and making people on H-1B visas lives very difficult back home in America. So let's discuss the AI front. For clients now, AI can do the same job of testing, of coding, of troubleshooting and maintenance as efficiently in a much shorter period of time than a regular employee. This causes like companies across the board to have reduced requirements of headcount or employees. Clients don't want to pay for 100 engineers when 10 engineers and Copilot can do the same job at a fraction of the cost. On the other side, you have GCCs or global capability centers. Now, the second factor is global capability centers or GCCs. GCCs are basically capability centers set up by multinationals who used to be clients of these IT services companies. Now they've seen the benefit in setting up their own tech hubs in India, which are known as global capability centers, where they hire their teams in-house to do the work they want. So they are basically taking the best talent from IT services companies and maintaining the high value IP for themselves. And then lastly, I'm not going to get into that further because his mind keeps changing, but then you have Donald Trump with his H-1B tantrums and that whole affair. Now, what happened most recently in this quarter, what we realized is there's mass layoffs going across the board in IT services companies like TCS, like Wipro, like Infosys. These companies, since Y2K, since the turn of the millennium, had an easy job of hiring people, and their revenue was completely tied to their headcount. As they grew, as the company size grew, their revenues grew, and they've become absolute behemoths in the Indian IT landscape as a result of labor arbitrage and operational efficiencies. For the first time this quarter, what we saw is that the headcounts of most of these companies had gone down significantly, but the revenue stayed more or less the same. Now, some people might question the terminal value of these industries, and there is merit to that argument because as AI gets more and more sophisticated, the need for a rented headcount as such becomes lesser and lesser. But one other thing on the flip side, a counter argument is that these companies will become more and more efficient because they will also adapt to AI and be able to execute projects for their clients with 10 or 20% of the workforce that they used to have. So as a result, their margins would go up significantly. So to quickly just recap everything that we've talked about, the old model was a pyramid model basically built on labor arbitrage. It worked very well for India because we have strong work ethics. Most Indians speak and understand English pretty fluently. And the labor here versus the labor in Europe or America, there was a significant delta. So it was a very good model that these companies saw an opportunity and built very solid industry, an industry that India probably excels at in the world. But this industry was built on a pyramid of labor arbitrage where revenue was a direct function of billable hours. So revenue was basically number of people into the billing rate. And this shows the pyramid that I discussed, where 60 to 70% of people are graduates and recently joined employees. They perform low cost coding, testing, maintenance, the foundation of this entire structure. Then you have project managers and architects comprising about 20 to 25%. And then on the top 5%, you have like the partners and the senior leadership. Like I discussed, I mean, I didn't include Donald Trump in the slide, but we have multiple front war breaking out, targeting these companies' this pyramid structure. This effect will primarily be seen at the bottom of the pyramid and maybe some in the middle of the pyramid. So, like GCCs are basically hiring talent 4 times faster than traditional IT services companies and paying 20 to 30% more. So, the best talent is always leaving and going to GCCs. Mark Andreessen famously said, "Software will eat the world." With regards to the IT industry, I tend to agree with him because product and SaaS companies operate on this principle called operating leverage. Their growth isn't contained by hiring. In fact, once they hire their initial team, they don't need to hire too many more people to service thousands of more clients. As a result, most of the incremental revenue flows directly to their bottom line. One more big benefit for these kind of companies is they're valued at 6 to 12 times sales, whereas traditional services based IT service companies are valued at 2 to 4 times sales. The strongest companies with the most defensible moats are not just building generic software, they're building vertical SaaS platforms and very targeted niche software targeting specific industries and use cases. And they're also leveraging the power of AI to strengthen their offerings for their clients. Now we'll discuss three architects who I think perfectly fit this model. They exemplify the shift of moving from renting IQ to selling IP. And they're not just surviving the AI disruption, but they're harnessing it to build defensible, scalable, non-linear businesses. We'll talk about three companies that operate in very different industries, but have this overlapping feature. The companies are Intellect Design Arena, RateGain Travel Technologies, and Inventorist Knowledge Solutions, or IKS Health. Now, before we start discussing these companies, I want to discuss that I want to mention that nothing that I talk about is a buy or sell recommendation. These companies are purely for educational purposes to understand the different uh, companies and businesses within the IT industry, and just use this as case study and educational purposes, and do your own research and diligence before considering any of these companies for investment. So the first company story begins with a man who dared to say no. Mr. Arun Jain was the founder of a company called Polaris, and he had built this company to a services giant. But he realized one thing, that you cannot get very far by saying yes to every customer's customization request, and essentially this conflicts with that, like with someone who's trying to build a product. So he did something really unthinkable. He split this company into two to have the services arm continue as is, and he launched a new company that would focus on a product. This company was called Intellect Design Arena. Now, Intellect Design Thinking was very visionary in their operations and their thinking. They realized that design thinking isn't just coding, and they're really obsessed and wanted to view design thinking as a holistic art. Their philosophy caused them to create a fintech design center in Chennai, which was a very unique facility utilized for co-creating solutions along with bank executives, ensuring like this ensured basically a very deep client buy-in, and they saw the client saw the miles the company was willing to go to meet their philosophies and visions. Mr. Arun Jain's dream is to make India the IP capital of the world for fintech. So what's very unique about Intellect Design Arena is that their product is not a monolith or a block. Think of it as many small Lego pieces, and their customers can choose whichever pieces they need to fit their requirements. So Intellect Design Arena has a stack of 386 microservices and 650 events. Banks, fintechs, and financial organizations can just buy whichever of these services and events that they need that fit into to their service offerings, and basically build a very customized stack of offerings that they want. They also have created a very sophisticated AI platform called Purple Fabric, which is a very powerful agentic AI tool that basically does the work of bank officers and bank employees. Now, I can't go into the details of that in this video, but I'll link a very interesting video about Purple Fabric in the description, and you should check it out if you're interested. So Intellect Design Arenas had some very recent big wins in terms of orders. They signed a landmark deal with 35 Canadian credit unions to manage $13 billion in assets under management. They also selected by a tier one Canadian bank to power its US operations and help them with their entry to the US market. And they've also displaced legacy vendors in Europe, partnering with OTP Bank. As a result of this, in Q2 FY26, while most IT services giants were struggling, Intellect Design Arena reported a massive 94% profit growth. This basically talks about what I was mentioning, operating leverage. So this quarter, although their revenue grew by only 34%, their EBITDA grew by 68%, and their PAT grew by an enormous 94%. Also, their license linked revenue grew 69%. This is a strong recurring revenue base, and it's very good because it's repetitive revenue that the business will have. The second company today we'll talk about is RateGain Travel Technologies. And the origin story of this company is pretty familiar. Mr. Bhanu Chopra, like most of us while traveling, he was very frustrated with the opaque travel pricing and even comparing prices across different platforms and different companies. So with this, he started RateGain Travel Technology in 2004, but he soon realized that the real value is arming hotels, OTAs, airlines with competitive intelligence. So he pivoted to a B2B data provider for the travel industry. The RateGain is known for their stellar culture and ethos. They were famously bootstrapped for over a decade after starting, instilling deep financial discipline. They successfully IPO'd in December 2021. And basically, the business model is they want to be the data pipes of the travel world, connecting people, generating demand like you, travelers like you and me, to OTAs, to hotels, to aggregators, to airline companies. They process over 200 billion data points annually, and it connects basically the aggregators to the end customer, hotels to the end customer. They have a very strong client base, including these hotels and OTAs mentioned here. They're a premier partner for Booking.com, and they're working with 26 out of the top 30 global hotel chains. RateGain made a game-changing acquisition in November 2025, where they bought Sojern, an American company, for $250 million. Sojern is a global leader in programmatic traveling marketing for travel. This acquisition will most likely double RateGain's revenue generation capabilities. And why this acquisition fits in very well is because this company called Adara, which they acquired earlier, gives them data on as to who is searching for travel. Then RateGain has their own demand and pricing data products in house, and with Sojourn's acquisition, they can target the users with ads. So basically, with Adara, they know who wants to travel. With Sojourn, they can target them with ads and their own products to basically facilitate this booking and this transaction. Following the Sojourn deal, RateGain has upgraded its revenue guidance for FY 2026 by 55 to 60%. This signals a massive change in scale. And now, with the holistic picture, RateGain has basically created a chief revenue officer in a box. While most companies are playing defense and adapting to AI, RateGain is playing offensive. The final company we'll talk about is Inventress Knowledge Solutions, or IKS Health. This is a bit of an emotional one because it was backed by none other than the big bull, Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. In fact, it was 49% owned by Rare Enterprises, and in 2025, the value of IKS Health in Mrs. Jhunjhunwala's portfolio surpassed that of Titan, Mr. Jhunjhunwala's favorite company. What does IKS Health do? It basically makes US doctors more efficient and saves them from 2 to 3 hours of administrative work known as pajama time. Basically, US doctors spend an hour and a half to 2 hours on paperwork every night for an hour they spend with their patients. And it was a term known as pajama time, and it was basically a very inefficient form or way of dealing with paperwork, but it was something that had to be done. So IKS Health has various solutions that they offer to basically reduce this administrative workload of doctors there. They've built this program called Scribble Ambient AI, which basically listens in on the conversations between doctors and patients and sends structured clinical notes to the doctors. They also offer Scribble Pro, where an AI generated note is validated by a human clinical expert. This guarantees near 100% accuracy, which is a non negotiable requirement in healthcare. So they have also recently acquired a company called Equity Solutions to gain a stronger hold in the US healthcare space and with American hospitals. In Q2 of FY 2026, IKS Health also demonstrated powerful operating leverage as their revenue grew by 22%, but their PAT grew by an impressive 60%. So this is just the comparison of the three non-linear businesses, um, the industries that they operate in, the moats and their core products, the growth catalysts, including acquisitions for two of them, and very strong order wins for Intellect Design Arena, how each of them has used AI and their AI flagship products, and basically what the thesis is for each of the three. So, in conclusion, according to me, gone are the days of headcount, of linear growth, of basically increasing your number of junior employees to increase your revenue. I think product and building like specific product that solves problems of industries will be the future, and companies who leverage AI tools to strengthen what they are offering in terms of their product will have a clear right to win going forward. The three companies that we've discussed today are doing that in their own unique ways. And with that, I say that the great decoupling is here, and the alpha lies in the decoupling between headcount and revenue. That's it from me today. If you learned anything useful in this video, please feel free to like, share, or subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any feedback for me or you have any suggestions for topics that you would like for me to cover next. Thanks. Good night.